Good evening, keepers of the cash. Gary B, the casual comic guy here, and tonight, guys, I am joined with co-host Digger Jim. Jim, how are you doing this week, sir?
Doing great, sir. Doing great. I'm officially on my 4-day weekend. I didn't have to work today, and I don't have to work tomorrow because it's a
Ooh.
holiday. So I'm getting paid and not having to work. I love it.
Hey, free money's always good, right?
Free money is good.
But what are you gonna buy with that free money, Jim?
Probably some more stuff like this. And I actually because my channel is not just about comics, because I do metal detecting. I was on Whatnot and did one of those. It was a coin show, and I just did you paid a lump sum, and you got to pick a number and pull a bag, and the guy pulled the bag, and it had in it you could pick a mint coin set. So I picked. And you're not going to be able to see it because it's really, but this is 1985 mint coins from 1985, never been circulated. And 1985 is, the year I graduated. So I thought that would be kind of cool. Was it worth the money I paid? Maybe not. But you had a shot at a big Morgan dollar, which was what I was hoping to pull. And that was why it was the gamble part of it. And he had two Morgan
reward, huh?
Yeah, it really was. I mean, the Morgan dollars were awesome. But yeah, so that was kind of neat. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. It might be in a giveaway one day. It's kind of cool.
It is.
Yeah.
And people in the chat. So Jim and I are talking a minute. Our guest, Bearded Comic Bro, who was on 2 nights ago, is missing at the moment. We don't know what's going on. We haven't been able to contact him. So we are going to hang out for now. Hopefully he gets to pop in. But while we're hanging out, we're going to say hello to the chat. And of course, first in this evening, Las Cruces. How are you, sir? Followed by Jerry the Jitterbug. Good evening, Jerry. Chop and Drop. All the greats are here this evening. And Jerry down there saying he loves free money.
Right.
Officially unofficial. Good evening. How are you? Jackson Roykirk. Good to see you, sir. And there was
Matt Woods.
John, yep. How you doing? And yes, Matt Woods. I don't want to skip Matt Woods. He'll send me hate mail. You know how that guy is.
That's right. He knows where you live.
Right? Now he knows where I live, so he can track me down. It won't take much effort.
That looked like a good day, you guys hanging out. I watched the video. I was like, wow, that looks like they had a good day.
Yeah, that was and I've met a couple local people here that have YouTube channels. And that was fun. But that was my first time meeting somebody that drove into it.
Right.
Yes, free money is the best money. It sure is. And when you get a good comic, it's even better. I would say free comics are almost as good as free money.
Well, I look at it this way. Like I said, my other hobby being metal detecting, that's all free money. I mean, that all I got to do is, pull it out of the ground. The weirdest thing is that last year, I'm trying to remember where we were. We were in the city, and I want to say we were at a park that was on the edge of town. And I look over, and there was a $10 bill just sitting on the ground, and I was like, nice. Whoa! I don't need a detector for that. so I was like, hey man, I just scored us a crispy $10 bill.
I remember that my kid found when he was really young, probably I think he was 3. He found a $20 bill on the ground.
Yeah.
So I'm like, buddy, you found that. That's your money. Do you want to go to Toys R Us?
Oh, and yeah.
Straight to Toys R Us we went. There he goes. He'll toss Gary in Lake Toronto. Oh, it's cold this time of year, though, Matt.
Yeah, we don't want that.
How you doing, John's Comics for Kids? All right, so true fact about me, I've never metal detected.
I love it. I mean, if you find a nice place and you can go back multiple times, the guy I metal detected with for the last 2 years before he got shipped overseas, we hit a place that had so much history. It was a few towns over, but it was in the 1800s, it was a monastery. And then it turned into a refugee camp during World War II. It was a school for a while. And at the current time when we were detecting it, it was the ending of a private school. So ask Bearded why the Mighty Ducks. Hey, Cole, call Bearded and tell him we want to know where he is.
We think he fell asleep at home. He is not backstage. We're throwing out the bat signal for you, Cole.
Right. I'm gonna have to send the link to Cole. We'll have, his backup. Cole's Comic Claims backup.
Oh, that is not a bad idea. Let me get that here. So
nobody loves to hear about my stories.
We were talking though, and
yeah,
that approach, and I know, like you said, and like I said, that thing hits all my buttons. But that comic, I'm telling you, yes, you should, Call. I'll send you the link. That comic was so good, man. It was great isolation horror. It was great character building, and it had a super great cliffhanger.
This has been my consistent read for since it started. If you're not reading Do a Powerbomb, you're crazy. This is all because of Mark from Legion of Comics. We were on his chat well over, God, when was it? It would have been at the beginning of the year. And somebody brought up Murder Falcon, and I said I've never read Murder Falcon, and he sent me the trade paperback, and I loved it. I was like, oh my gosh! It just hit me in the feels. Not just that, but I had a friend whose son had who played in a punk rock band and was only 21, and he had just passed of cancer. Ooh. And it came up quick, and then I read Murder Falcon, and I'm over here just bawling away, and I'm just like, what is this? What's going on? It really touched me. So I sent it to my brother and said, dude, you have to read this. And so when we were at Heroes Con, Daniel Warren Johnson was there, and he signed it and remarked it. And I said, what are you going to do with it? He's like, I'm going to send it to somebody. So he sent it to Marcus, Circumstances, because that's, paying it forward book. And it's such a good book to read. So once I found out that he was doing Do a Powerbomb, I was like, oh, hell yeah, I'm going to read that. How can you not? It's got wrestling in it, for crying out loud. And I'm not a huge wrestling fan, but just the.
And that's a book that I heard nothing about. So I missed the boat on that one. Like that. And I would have missed the boat on the approach if my LCS owner wasn't so good. He had it in my folder. He's like, Gary, I pulled this book for you. I think it's up your alley. It's very John Carpenter, I think. I said, all right, I'll get it. And then I walked over. He goes, this cover's pretty cool too. And I looked at the other cover. I'm like, yeah, I'm getting that too. Just give me both.
Just give me both. Yeah. Like you said, I haven't read Specs yet, so I can't wait to read it.
It was good. I enjoy another good cliffhanger on it. And that's weird. That one's told kind of in a flashback.
Okay.
So it's a very Stand By Me vibe.
Okay.
With a little bit of a horror twist on it, but subtle horror, not like gore in your face, just like uneasiness.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna probably read it tonight after we get off, because I still have a stack of books that I wanna check out. I'm trying to think of what else. I did read, like I told you, I read Tiger Division. Moon Knight, guys. If you're not reading Moon Knight, yeah. Oh, John, man, where's Bearded?
He had it in his calendar for 8:30.
Okay.
He just messaged me. He's coming.
Because I was like, I think he was sad that he had the other Norse brother and not John, because they're buddies.
And he's like, yeah, I'm out of here. I can't.
I can't do that second-rate Norse. I gotta have the main guy, the one that's smart and knows what he's talking about. I was like, oh, I'm on my way.
Yeah, she's gonna join the panel this evening.
Nice.
Yeah, here we go. There's your brother right there. Jim's literally my bearded comic bro. It's true. John's comics for kids. There's another gentleman I need to reach out and get him on the 2 shows. I got to reach out to John, and I got to reach out to 22 Comics.
Oh yeah, 22 for sure. 22.
It's tough. My list is always growing, but it's tough now because we have Thanksgiving and Christmas, and I'm going to try not to schedule during those weeks.
Yeah.
So now, like, the schedule's tight. Next week we have Brian LCS on both, and so we got Carrie joining us. How you doing, Carrie? Officially unofficial. She is an official panel member this evening, and coming in late. We have Bearded Comic Bro, and guys, it's not entirely his fault. I think when him and I originally talked, it was 8:30 when we originally had the discussion.
I didn't look at anything. I didn't read. I retweeted stuff. I just didn't look at the time because I had it in my calendar. It's 8:30.
Right? I was like, did you not read the thumbnail? I was like,
so, you had one of those moments where you have dreams now, even being out of school, where you're like late for your test. And all that. You're late for your math test. It's always a math test in those dreams, isn't it?
Yeah. No doubt. No doubt.
I know. Look, Bearded, Greg, you're a man that's getting a little older like us, and I'm like, you know what? I bet he fell asleep on the couch.
I bet he did too.
No, I wish I did. I wish I did. I wish I was doing anything. I was sitting on my phone scrolling through TikTok and Instagram reels and I was like, I get a message, I just kind of flip it up because I'm like, I was watching something, I had basketball on. I was literally doing nothing. And then luckily John texted me. So like it showed up on my screen because I kept getting Instagram messages. And
well, we put out an SOS for them to reach you. And the only one that balked at it was, Cole's comment claims because he has the beard jealousy going.
Yeah, well, Cole did in his defense. I think he messaged me, said, "Where are you at?" But it was on Instagram. So again,
I'm just picking on Cole. Here we go. He's watching reels of cheese mixed with chocolate and peanut butter.
See, he can never say that he didn't get in contact with you.
This is why Cole's at fault. Cole sent me that stupid reel of like cheese being mixed with peanut butter and chocolate. So then when he's messaging me on Instagram, I'm like, I don't need to see another dumb video that you're sending me. Cole. So
wait, what was the video? The video. The video was cheese being mixed with peanut butter. Is that?
Yeah. He's like, and it was like something like, "This is what Ohioans eat for dessert" or something. I was like, "This is dumb." I was like, "No one." And so I was just ignoring Cole. So, man,
we in no way endorse that. People from Ohio are dumb on this program.
Hey, that peanut butter and chocolate, isn't that what a Buckeye is? It
is peanut butter.
Peanut butter and chocolate. Peanut butter and chocolate, fine. Yeah. Peanut butter and cheese.
I agree, Matt.
On the other hand,
not so much.
And now so tonight, Carrie has graciously come on the panel, so she'll be interviewing you along with us. So welcome Carrie to her hot seat debut as a guest host. Thank you for jumping in, Carrie.
This was not planned.
It's okay. And without further ado, guys, welcome to In the Hot Seat with the Usual Suspects. Our guest this evening, none other than fashionably late, Bearded Comic Bro himself. How you doing tonight, sir?
Dun, dun, dun.
Man, I'm doing good now that I can just like I'm calming down, I'm relaxing because I finally got John's text. I'm like, what? I'm like, what is he waiting for? I'm like, I still got 15 minutes. And I'm looking at all the Instagram messages. So I'm running upstairs to get my computer that was in my car. I'm banging stuff. And my wife's like, what are you doing? I haven't even responded to my wife's text message of what I'm doing yet because she's like, garage door was opening up. I'm running down here. And I'm just like, oh, man, I feel like a clown. And
well, we appreciate you breaking a sweat for us.
There you go.
Dude, yeah, it's the most workout I've done in a long time.
So, Carrie, just to give you a quick initiation, when you have a question, just be rude and jump in. We talk over each other all the time. When there's something you want to ask, you just shut Jim and I up and you ask Greg a question. It'll be all good. Or anything you want to say or contribute.
All right, stop. Carry time.
Yeah, something like that. There you go.
So now let's get going with a few basic questions for the people who are going to watch this on the rewind and stuck around for the first 15 minutes to meet you.
I'm such a creature of habit. I put it in my phone at 8:30. I didn't even look at the times when I was retweeting stuff.
Yeah.
We'll ask a few basics and then we'll branch off. The first being, what was your introduction to comics and how did that segue into you creating a YouTube channel?
Oh wow, that's all right. So my segue into comics, honestly, it was really two important people in my life. Well, comics was one important person. YouTube was another important person. So comics was very simply, it was my mom. By default, she didn't read comics. She wasn't a comic fan. But I'm the youngest of three, and my mom is a big movie buff. Like, she loved to go to movies, and she couldn't leave me at home. So she would be like, hey, do you want to go see a movie? And most kids are like, yeah. But like, she would take me to anything. So like, we're talking like Little Women, we're talking Titanic, we're talking, it could have been Terminator 2, or it didn't matter. And so if I was one I didn't want to see, she'd go, well, I'll buy you a comic afterwards.
Because
there was she bribed me. There was a secondhand store. We have these places called half price bookstores here in Columbus, which you can get a lot of, back issue comics and stuff for like 25 cents. Like, so my mom was bribing me with the cheapest stuff possible, but I was like, I get to eat popcorn and then I get to pick out a Batman comic book afterwards. I'm like, okay. And so by default, I started reading Batman comic books and things that I would just pick out of the, the quarter bins, because they had quarter bins at half price bookstore because they were doing dollar bins and stuff then, and now they're dollar
comics with
it's not that great anymore at half price books though.
I still can find some gems. I'm not gonna lie, I can find some gems here or there. But so I mean, by default, like I was reading like Batman 425 and then going to like Batman 385 or 362 or like completely out of order. I would just get a comic, I would read it, and even if there was more story before or after, it was so self-contained that I was just like, well, I didn't know any better. I didn't know anything about comic stores, like specialty stores. It was literally just going to the secondhand bookstore and getting comics from a box. And so that was my introduction to comics. I never went into a comic book store as a kid. It was always secondhand or picking up a comic book trade at, a bookstore. Like, I still have somewhere my greatest Joker stories ever told. That was just a collected edition. I mean, that's how I got into comics, was being bribed by my mom to go see movies that I didn't want to go see.
You said you're the youngest of three children. I am as well. Did your older siblings ever influence that kind of, like the stuff that you read, that you watched and that kind of thing?
Not really. So my older sister had nothing to do with it. My brother, he casually read comics as well. And it was more of, we watched a lot of, like, we were kids during the Batman.
Sorry, that's us. We sent the cops looking for you to make sure you're
listen.
Okay.
It's fine.
It is the theme song of Rockford, Illinois, where I currently live. So yeah, I apologize.
But yeah, so we watched Batman the animated series. Yes. We'd watch X-Men the animated series. He was a big Spider-Man fan, so we watched the Spider-Man animated series, and I'd watch the Batman animated series, and we both liked the X-Men one. So we kind of just casually watched that from that. He would pick up comic books at the half price bookstores and stuff like that with me every once in a while, and he had a small little stack that we'd share here or there. But I was really the one that was doing all the reading of it and looking at pictures, acting like I was reading.
What connected you with Batman right away? Was it just because that's what was available when you went there? So that was your introduction to comics? Character design, or you already kind of had an inkling of who he was?
I had an inkling of who Batman was as a kid. My mom swears that my first two words were football and Batman. I call BS. I'm like, there's no way my first 2 words were that, Mom. But she swears that they were. So apparently I must have Batman toys or something as a little kid like that.
Right.
I was just influenced. I have no idea about. But because of that, what happens in my family is when someone finds something that you like, you get nothing but that thing. Like that's like it was like my brother, like at one point he was like, oh, I think pigs are cool. Like, and my parents just like, my mom just bought him like a stuffed pig, a picture of pig. And he's like, why are you guys buying it? She's like, well, you said you liked the pig one time when we were at the fair. And he's like, are you what? Why? And so I think that's kind of how I got inundated with Batman early, because I think somehow I something picked up. And a cool thing, I have my grandma used to, because she knew I liked Batman, she used to record the Batman 66 TV show.
Nice.
And would send them on VHS tapes to us because we didn't have cable as a kid and they did. And so she would illegally pirate these things.
It's only pirating if she's, asking for money.
Right. And she said, but she also sent me money with it. So I feel like it was reverse pirating. So
right.
But it's, so I still have it. And so I have some of the VHS tapes still of Batman 66 that my grandma sent me, and it's cool and it's special and it means a lot now because she actually just passed away this year. So like that, now I have that in my collection as something I'm like, nobody cares about these VHSs, but those were like the foundation for me of, I always have a love for Batman 66. And, if you've seen my channel and posts and stuff, like I make videos where I talk about it. I have the action figures of the 66. I watch those shows all the time. It's something that resonated. And so because of that, then I started to just grow I grew up at the prime age. I think Batman the Animated Series came out when I was 7. And, those shows were right there when I was at 7. So it was like, man.
Right. So being a Batman 66 fan, there was 3 Catwomen. Who was your favorite Catwoman?
I was going to ask that. That is so cool.
So honestly, if you would have asked me this, and it was the one, and I want to say it was Julie, the one who played in the movie.
Julie Newmar?
Newmar?
Was she the one who played in the movie?
I don't know.
Because it was her, Eartha Kitt, and now I'm blanking on the other one.
Hold on.
Lee Merriweather.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think Julie Newmar played in the. I think Julie Newmar.
It was
Lee.
It was Lee Merriweather, and
okay.
Oh my goodness.
Nice.
So I was gonna ask him, like, I don't know. So honestly, it probably was Lee Merriweather if I was thinking about it now, because I watched this VHS movie through and through over and over.
A million times.
Did you want that shark repellent?
The shark repellent was so cool, and that was the first time you got to see like the Batcopter, the Batboat, and all those villains together. Like I loved it. So she probably was my favorite then, but I've been rewatching it with my girls, and I think they'd say Julie Newmar is their favorite.
Do you guys out in Ohio? Do you guys have the Me TV station on TV?
I don't think so.
Okay, because around our area we have Me TV. It's like a network station, and it does like this Svengoolie, and then right after Svengoolie lately, it's been showing the old Batman 66 series. And
I don't know. I have the whole Blu-ray box set, and then we have them digital and stuff. And so the animated series is still a little too violent. For my girls think it's a little too dark still, which is rightfully so. Like it's a little too scary for them because they're both under 5. So I have to pick and choose those a lot more. So it's easier for me to put on an episode of Batman 66, and that's how they start to learn the Batman characters. And so they go through phases like most kids. Sometimes it's like we watch nothing but PJ Masks and and Gabby's Dollhouse, but then like they'll remember Batman. They're like, "Can we watch Daddy's Batman?" I'm like, "Yeah, we can."
And I think as far as cartoons go, I thought Batman Brave and the Bold is an underrated gem. Nobody
Yes,
talks
it
about
is.
that cartoon, and that was really fun. That cartoon.
Yeah, that was good.
It is. What's his face?
Love the team-ups on it.
Voices Batman is great in it. He's like the side character. He's like the guy who, like, you know, he's famous, but you don't remember what he's from. He's fantastic in it.
So going with, and I love asking this question on this show. It's one of my favorites. We all have our favorite cartoons growing up. Like one of mine was Thundar the Barbarian. Of course, I love the 90s Spider-Man one. X-Men, of course. Spider-Man and his amazing friends. You know, then you had like the Herculoids and stuff like that. Scooby-Doo is, I'm going to love Scooby-Doo to the day I die. I'll watch any Scooby-Doo movie that comes out at any time. It doesn't matter how old I am. But what cartoons were influencing you growing up besides the obvious Batman, the animated series? Did you watch the older Batman cartoons? Because I remember growing up on those too.
Yeah.
The animation wasn't great, but there was something fun about them.
Yeah. So I didn't watch any of the old Batman cartoons. I didn't watch Super Friends. That stuff I kind of dabbled into later on in life. Same with like the Batman serials that they would show in the movie theaters. Those were ones that I used to. So I missed a lot because of like right where I was at. You know, I was born in the 80s, but I was a kid of the 90s, to be honest. I mean, what John is saying right there is my go-to. Those were, I mean, Darkwing Duck, Animaniacs, Tiny Toons.
I can still sing the Tiny Toon theme song. You know, we're tiny, we're toony, we're all a little loony in this afternoon.
It was
all TV.
So I every once in a while just break into the Darkwing Duck theme and just out of nowhere.
So just Darkwing Duck is one that I love. Another one that I think it was only on for like a season was Bonkers. We was like a cat.
Yeah, that's the
like,
cat. Yeah.
Yeah, with like real human people, detective stuff. Like I love those shows. Gargoyles, the Mighty Ducks, the animated series. Like I ate that stuff up. Like those were my shows. So like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles also was in that category because we'd pick up the old VHS tapes.
Yes.
That you could get, you know, the bright multicolored ones. And, we didn't have cable, like I said earlier, growing up. So I missed out. Like I casually knew of Rugrats and those Hey Arnold and stuff because I see it at my friend's house. But if it wasn't on network TV, I wasn't watching it and listening, you know, or seeing it. So, Mighty Ducks Game Changers on Disney Plus. Oh yeah, that's one of the best shows on Disney Plus. If you're not watching it, Cole and I talk about it every night. So, that's a the new episode dropped yesterday, and it's, oh my goodness, it punches you in the heart. It's so good.
Is Lauren Graham still in the show?
Yeah, she is. So, yep. So
now
she's still killing it.
I want to circle back to the second part of that question. What got you into YouTube? We never touched on that part.
I didn't. So this. All right, I'll try and give a brief version because it was a many-step process.
Sure.
I got back into comics about 2017. There was a local comic shop that opened up. I told my wife, I'm like, I'm going to go check it out, and started picking up Batman books. I talked a little bit on your show Tuesday, and what happened was I just fell back in love with comics, like what I loved about it so much, and I just started collecting everything. And so about a year goes by. My wife and I were going to Comic Cons and stuff already, but it was mostly like to go see pop culture celebrities and things like that. Like,
right.
So we were in that game. I wasn't getting autographs by creators and stuff. So I was reading comics, but like, I wasn't like knowing the creators, knowing anything about comics. I was just reading it for the love of reading. Mm-hmm. And then I fell into a rabbit hole and I started to get more into it. And so about 2019. So I think I got back into it in 18, and then 2019, I was out with my wife for dinner, and we were sitting outside, and she goes, "So I made a fake Instagram today." And I looked at her, I was like, what does that even mean? Like, like, why are you telling me this? I'm like, dinner just got really weird all of a sudden. Like, what? And she explained, like, she wanted an outlet for her creatively that she wasn't bombarding her personal Instagram stuff. So she liked a lot of stuff with like got into the watching HGTV stuff. So, she wanted to get into kind of like the, posting like the cool artsy photos with her iced coffees and, the shiplap or the cool street signs that you see and things like that. And just, embracing like the cool things of life. And, she's showing me, I'm like, well, that's awesome. I'm like, that's so cool. I was like, well, I want a fake Instagram account. And she's like, well, what would you do it on? I'm like, I don't know. Like, what would I do it on? You'll
figure it out.
Well, that's kind of what I was thinking. And she's like, well, what about like posting about your comic books? Like, she kind of initiated it because I never put, I don't put a lot about my comic stuff on my personal accounts because nobody cared. And and so I was like, well, this is interesting. So I went home, created an Instagram account called Bearded Comic Nerd. And I was posting for about a week. And then I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do with this, like this brand. I was like, but I should just start like claiming everything. So claiming Twitter and YouTube and everything, and never probably put anything on there. And I think the first one I went to was Twitter, and Twitter, I had one letter too long. I couldn't do Bearded Comic Nerd. And so I was like, shoot, I liked Bearded Comics. So I was like, I need a 3-letter word. I was like, I don't want to do guy. I was like, well, I'm a bro. I was like, Bearded Comic Bro. So I changed it on Instagram. It was fine. So I changed it on Instagram, changed it on Twitter, went on, like, bought the domain name on YouTube, or not YouTube. I bought the domain name for the URL for, and then I went on YouTube, registered it, and it just sat. Because I was like, I'm not gonna make videos or anything, because I hadn't discovered the comic book community or anything like that. And I started to just kind of, Instagram was fun, but it kind of was lackluster for me because I wasn't really interacting with people much. It's unless you know the people, like you're starting to, like, talking with you all on cameras. Now when we have interactions on Instagram, it's a lot more fulfilling, right?
Right.
If you don't know the people
like 2-3 years ago, like you didn't have everything available that you have on Instagram now. You get Instagram's like a mini version of YouTube now.
Yeah, it is. And so it was fine. And so I was like, well, what if I like dip my toe into like making YouTube videos? So my first YouTube video I ever made was January 2020. It was my top 10 comic books series of the year. And most people are like, oh, don't go back and watch my first video, it's bad. I'm like, nah, mine was good. Like, I liked it. So like, I mean, it's funny to watch the process as things have changed, and of how because my basement has drastically changed throughout my time as I started to get into it more to craft it. So I did about, I think if you look, my first 3 videos, it was one a month. And I remember in March, after my 3rd video, I remember sitting down with my wife and I was just talking with her. She's like, oh, how's you done? I'm like, I'm getting like 20 views on my 3 videos. I'm like, this is hard. Like, I don't know if I have like the bandwidth to just make a video a month. Like, this is time consuming to do this. And it was just hilarious because now I'm like, we got to crack out 3 videos in a week. Let's go. Let's do it. But at this time, I still hadn't discovered the YouTube comic community. Right. Not to get super sad here at all or anything. One of the first videos that I found of the comic book YouTube community was Comic Jabroni. He was a big Batman Turtles guy, and I related with him a lot. And I started seeing his videos, and he started doing like top 10 favorite, obscure Batman villains or stuff like this, or like cool comics that you can pick up and, that are like key Batman villains and stuff. Like, so a lot of and he was one of the first people that I saw do the, quiz your spouse or a significant other and of comic book characters and things like that. And so like I fell into the comic YouTube community. I kind of reached out to Jabroni and Edwin, and I talked with them about like, this is a fantastic universe. And I was like, asking questions about YouTube. How do I do this and stuff? And he kind of like was just like, just create what you like to do. And then I, and so I started to kind of watch comic book YouTube then. And, that was when COVID was, I was making the statement when like COVID told my wife, I'm like, I don't know if I want to do comic book YouTube stuff anymore. I was like, 3 videos was way too much in 3 months. But that's when the world shut down. And then I started to see the community, because I think it came alive a lot more then too, because everyone had more time to do stuff.
Sure.
And because I loved Comic Cons, I went to Comic Cons, with my wife before COVID and stuff. And we were supposed to go to a con in March in Lexington. And 2 weeks before that con, the world shut down. And so like there started to have, I don't know if you guys remember, but like, I think it was Comic Core they did like a Comic Con online. And I started to see that and that aspect of the community, and seeing then John's Comics with Kids, he was on there interviewing people about comics and comic creators. I was like, I feel like that could be fun, like and like, so I remember reaching out to John. I didn't even know John. This was probably like in May or June of 2020, and I was just like, hey, like, really cool interview, like that was awesome. And he was like, oh man, thanks for watching. I was like, oh my gosh, like a big YouTube celebrity like reached back, because I thought 1,000 subscribers. I was like, this is cool. And I saw him reach out to creators, and so I started like, that's when that Comic Con and those interactions with Jabroni and stuff were kind of what spawned it of, man, I could do this YouTube, because it's more than just making videos. It's finding your niche and finding your community and your people. And man, so that's the long-winded version of how I kind of got into YouTube, because I got into it early 2020 and I almost stopped. And, but then finding the community, I know I had to pump the brakes. I was like, and then I started becoming friends with John. I'm like, I'm going to attach my horse to this wagon. I'm going to grow like crazy. But so, yeah, I mean, that was watching that time frame from like March to June. I think that was right around the time then that Bruce and Stephanie Comics had their comic book trivia competition. And so I got to meet a lot of people like Bueller and the boy who had 7 on that. I think John was on there, Chaos and Comics, and started to just see these communities. And through that interaction of always being on that trivia show with them, I was talking with people and building relationships and stuff like that. And it was cool for me to see, like, I found my people, because I didn't have that on. I didn't have that with, posting on Facebook and Instagram on my personal stuff, like,
or in real life,
and
right?
It's kind of easier, like sometimes especially for people that have like social anxiety, like to just be like, okay, so I have this filter here and it's the computer screen, and it doesn't mean that you couldn't like go out in public and meet people. I've met a couple people from the community actually in person, but like it allows you that opportunity to kind of like slowly filter yourself through, and for being in a community like Rockford, where you don't really like want to go out into the community and do anything, because I don't know if people know about Rockford, but Rockford sucks. And but wanting to like actually like go out and find people, it's harder.
Yeah. Well, I was that's what I kind of figured it all at that time frame was when I think when the world shut down, YouTube blew up.
Yeah. And
people started going, hey, we can meet each other on StreamYard and, have live sit downs and still connect. And it was for me, it was a great time to meet all these people. And, that's why I kept telling my brother, I was like, oh my God, you got to get in on this, man. This is amazing. I mean, these people are awesome.
And to answer Cole's question, it is Rockford, Illinois. Home of the Rockford Peaches.
Now, and for the longest time too, Beard, I was scared to go live. I'm like, I don't even know how I do a live. And now these lives are like my favorite things to do, right? Because I mean, look at the community tonight, right? Yep. I had my main guest not even show up for the show. You wouldn't believe it.
The dude's been on YouTube for 3 years, almost 3 years now.
I
and he
picked
just
it.
thinks
It's
he's
as
cool
much my
himself.
fault as yours. But then I had Carrie from the audience reaching out. Yeah, I mean, what great community stuff, right? And I have extra guests. I have a new co-host that I'll probably reach out to again. But
that's me. He's talking about me.
Yeah. I remember going live and just the first time and man, thinking I'm just gonna bomb it, and then and I equate it to the new bar hangout, and that's what YouTube is, right? This is the new way you meet your friends and hang out with them. This is the local bar. It's right here on our channels.
It is, and I love it. And
we bar hop to each other's channels,
which is hilarious. Is I've never done a live on my channel.
Really?
Never. I've never gone live on my channel.
You've only been live on other people's channels?
I've only been live on other people's channels. The only content on my channel is edited videos.
What's crazy is when you do a live and somebody comes into the chat for the first time and you're just like, oh wow, we got a live one, folks.
That's actually going to be in the works here eventually soon, that I'll probably do some live, but I've just, for me, I don't do lives because the comic community is great, but y'all also are vulgar people. There's always there's always a hesitation for me because I have tried to craft my show that anybody can watch it. That if I bring people on live, that I can't control that narrative of what people say, and because I have nephews and nieces that find out.
Yeah, you have a lot of kids attached to you. Like you have your own kids, and you and it's one of those things where you probably want to be able to be like, hey, you can watch Daddy and that kind of thing. That's honestly the only reason is because I'm very cognizant of, I have kids. I mean, on my, I have kids that watch my shows and stuff, and my kids and my, I'm cautious of that. So it's like, I've always some weird, because I love so many people, but anytime people have been on my show, it's been edited. And the only stuff I do that I don't really have a filter for is when I bring a creator on. That's the only time where it's unedited, kind of, that people can say whatever they want, because it is what it is. But when I can because my kids aren't watching me talk to comic book creators, so I'm okay.
Dude, that one you did with Tony Isabella, I was like, did he? What? This is going crazy. I mean, he just let loose, and I was like, oh, I gotta listen to that again. Hold on,
dude had some stuff to say.
He unloaded on your show, man. I was like, oh, wow.
I have not seen that one. I'm gonna have to watch it.
So
Black Lightning thing, man. He just
he's a creator of Black Lightning, and for DC, and he just has some really. He's a really nice dude. He was great to talk to. I would have him on my show anytime. But he has some very hurt feelings about how things were handled at DC with his creation. And from what from hearing his story, I understand it. I get it. Right. And but it wasn't trying to be he wasn't completely bashing him, but he wasn't afraid to be throwing him under the bus.
Oh yeah.
And so it was interesting because I at least had known, because I always try to prep a little bit more and watch clips of other interviews. I don't like to watch all of an interview because I don't want it to shape me, but I got a vibe that I'm like, okay, we're gonna get a little raw here, and I'll be okay with it.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Well, he's not the only one. I mean, I've seen clips from other people's stuff when Neil Adams was alive, and he would say some stuff, and I'm sure he's not the only one. I mean,
and there's a lot. I think a lot of the older, which is interesting, the more I've done the interviews, a lot of the older creators are okay talking, because they kind of got screwed over. They didn't have the stuff that you had in the 90s, that started to create that, create your own stuff and things like that. And they kind of were just, how much can you produce and how quick? And it's
right.
So
it's almost like the older people are just gotten to the point where they're fresh out of don't give a, you know.
Right. Yep.
And
they were making a lot of their money off appearances at cons and stuff.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's part of it is I don't and I've said this before and I'll say it again. If I go to a con and you're not currently doing a book and you're, you know, like say, you know, Al Milgram and somebody like that, I'll pay the $10 for a signature. I'll pay the $20 for the signature because he's not currently working.
Right.
But if you're currently working, should you really be like charging a huge chunk of money for your signature? I'm already buying your book weekly. I'm paying tribute to you weekly. That's always kind of been a, you know, and I'm not trying to be a cheapskate. I'm just saying, you know, hey, we support you every time.
I think it also depends on who you're talking about, you know, like, and, you know, you get certain companies companies are notorious for not paying their people. And that's one of the reasons why when it comes to things like creators like that, I usually don't like criticize that, but like, if it's somebody like a big movie star and they're wanting me to pay $150 for the pleasure of getting their autograph, no, thank you. Like,
no,
I mean, depends on who the celebrity is.
I did pay $60 just to get my picture taken with Alex Kingston from Doctor Who. So
see,
I mean,
there's always one, because like, and I also feel before COVID, because we went to cons and we did a lot of celebrity photo ops. Like that was our thing. Again, my wife isn't in the comics, so for me to get us into comic, you know, going to comic cons, I was like, hey, people from The Office are going to be here,
right?
We love the show.
You had to give her a comic book as or her version of a comic book, as
right? I had to find out what, and so one time we were at a con in Columbus and Jason Momoa was going to be there. And I was like,
oh,
hey.
There you go.
I was like, yeah, I know it's a lot of money, but like, can we drop like $100 to get our photo with Jason Momoa? And she's like, wait, we get an actual photo with Jason Momoa? Yeah, absolutely, fine. Like, you don't have to be in it. I was like, no.
And his wife was like, will he be shirtless?
Right. That photo. Don't you dare.
And if you guys ever seen some of the people that post the photos that are from these fan things with Jason Momoa, he really he has fun with them.
He does.
Yeah.
He gives them their buck's worth.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, Bearded,
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I got a big question for you.
All right.
So obviously your whole brand is this bearded thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you were coming up with it, you kind of locked yourself in a box, right? If you ever wanted to shave it, you're kind of stuck.
I did.
When did this whole the bearded you come about, and that you decided to keep the beard, and have you always been associated as a bearded guy, or did that come later?
I thought he was born with a beard. Isn't that the way?
Right.
I came out with a beard. I cut it at 3 years old with a machete, and
you donated a little bit so Cole could have a mustache.
That's how Cole's mustache is from the remnants of my beard.
That's what I thought.
That's how
why we're caterpillar.
Good friends. Yeah.
He's a statesman and a philanthropist, you know.
You know, I try. So, to give you the honest answer, I started going bald like when I was in college. I had a bald patch back there. I started to get the bird's nest. And I knew one of two things had to happen. I either had to shave my head or become Jewish so I could hide my bald spot all the time, right? And so I was like, well, I'll just shave my head. Well, I'm a bigger guy and I had no hair on top and I had a chubby baby face. I was like, well, this just isn't a good look. So I grew out my beard and I've kept it ever since. And I shaved it one time, and I shaved it really low, and I was just like, I almost cried because I was like, I don't like how I look. So I mean, yeah, I pigeonholed myself into it, but I don't think I'd ever want to not have a beard.
So you haven't regretted the decision to brand yourself as bearded?
No, because I mean, honestly, like I don't see myself ever not having a beard. Like people are like, oh, what would you ever do, like a bet or a dare, like where you shave your beard? I'm like, no. I'm like, no one would like that. I wouldn't like it. My kids wouldn't like it. My wife wouldn't like it. No.
Right.
I was like, no, no one's gonna benefit from it.
Nobody wins in that scenario.
Right.
Yeah, I was dying to ask you that because there's certain things like I'm the casual guy, so I just can't come on here and have a good rant one day, right? I gotta keep it casual.
Yeah.
But and that's part of the channel branding with so I'm like, I gotta ask him because I wonder if he's ever had that moment where he's just like, it's itchy, I just want to shave it.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, well, I'm
Yeah.
the bearded comic bro, I'm kind of stuck.
Man, yeah, no, I've I mean, so in all honesty, I probably started having a beard since I was 20, probably started 25, 24, 25, and I've just kept it ever since. And I've gone through phases of like having it down to here. I've had it a lot shorter. Even when I went through a phase of before I met my wife, I went on a ridiculous health kick, lost a lot of weight, and I still kept my beard then, even there, because it was so much of a part of me of just like I liked it. But I mean, the honest question was like, what Swatch Comics says is, I mean, beards do wonders to help your face look a little thinner. And so it was purely a self-conscious decision of I didn't like how I looked without a beard, so I never would shave it now.
Nice. So
There you go.
Marvel, DC have all these great characters. You get to pick one character to resurrect that hasn't been in comics in a long time and get the A-list treatment. What character that you like that's a forgotten character or doesn't get enough love do you want to see resurrected as an A-list character?
Oh, that's 100%. It's the greatest Marvel character ever created.
Super Pro?
There it is.
I just had you.
I wasn't gonna say it.
I was like, I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna go ahead and do it. I'm gonna do it.
Do it. Absolutely, 100%. Here's the deal, that would be the one thing is if like they're like, if Marvel is like, listen, we will produce Super Pro if you shave your beard, I'd say done.
Wow.
I'd say done.
Now,
well, I would say, you know what? The gauntlet has been thrown. Marvel.
It's on Marvel now.
It's on Marvel now. So I mean, I'd grow it right back. So I'd grow it back in like a day, so it wouldn't matter. But I would shave it for.
Well, who on DC would you use?
One that's hasn't been utilized. See, that's the tough for me of like who's in the roster that hasn't been utilized a lot, because I feel like DC's tapping into it a little bit more. Honestly, I mean, we got a little bit of a resurgence of it. I'm looking at it myself here. I'd probably say I'd like to see more Booster Gold back. We got a little bit of Blue and Gold. It was like a 5-issue mini with Dan Jurgens, which was great to have that back. I would like to see more. I would love to see a solo booster book, honestly. I
mean, I know people that'd be willing to see even just another team up book with Blue Beetle. So
see, and I'm okay with that. I did fall into, a lot of people fall into Booster Gold and Blue Beetle with the Justice League International. When but see, when I got back into it, I know Gore.
Just unsubscribe the right person, Gore.
So
could Super Pro take down Thanos?
Oh, that's why he isn't in the MCU. That's why, you know how they have to sideline characters like Captain Marvel throughout the movie, because like Captain Marvel being there would have just crushed it right away. Like,
right, he's just too powerful.
Right. That's why Super Pro can't be brought into the MCU, because he would just dominate it. I mean, the dude's come back from 3 knee injuries to now become a superhero. Like, who does that? Like, nobody.
There you go.
I mean, the dude was wrapped in NFL film tape, almost tried to be burned alive, but the chemicals from the film tape got into his bloodstream and gave him superpowers, and he has a super suit. Like, who can beat that? Nobody can. So, I mean, yeah, he would absolutely crush Thanos. So I like Booster Gold, though, from the aspect of, I think there's some really cool stories you could do. But I got into it when I started from the very beginning. So I fell into Booster Gold without Blue Beetle.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And so like I don't have as much of a love for that dynamic as a lot of people do, because I feel like a lot of people fell into Booster Gold and Blue Beetle from Justice League, international series and things like that. So
well, I know my boyfriend would totally agree with you on the whole Booster Gold thing, because he just when I met him and I just found out, okay, yeah, he's kind of into this, and then I found out he was into Booster Gold, and I was like, wow, you don't hear that often.
No,
and,
it's kind of one everybody brings up.
Yeah, and so I mean, because DC is, say what you will, and I know people like to give grief and stuff to both companies, but I mean, I feel like DC has pulled a lot lately of bringing back some of their characters. So I'd be interested to see. I'm sure I'm missing someone that I'm like, oh, that'd be really cool to see. Because like characters, a lot of the characters I would love to see are, we kind of talked about Gary Tuesday, are some of the more golden age. Like I would love to see it, Dick Tracy come back. I'd love to see the Phantom come back. Some of those characters, but they're not DC or Marvel. Like, those would have been my instant answers of bring back some of those golden age heroes.
It's and obviously you've seen me around. I'm a DC fangirl, so I'm here with you on the DC thing, and I'm gonna have to agree with you that it seems like even stuff that hasn't come out yet that we know is coming. They have. I saw something the other day that they're gonna have some stories with the Creeper.
Ooh, that would be a good one.
Yeah, so like that's coming, and it's especially when people sometimes hate on all the Batman books, right? But like I'm a Batman fangirl, so the idea that like the urban legends, where like just as long as it has some little connection to Gotham, they're able to do it, and some of the stories like early on in that were really great. Like all of a sudden you have Professor Pig, in a story, and hasn't been used much.
I'd like to see Dead Man.
See,
he was in a few issues of Wonder Woman, probably around a year ago, maybe a little bit less. It was during there's this story, it's Afterworlds.
Yeah.
And it's she ends up going to different universes or different afterlives, and she runs into her friend Boston, Deadman.
Yeah, I'd like to see him and Batman do a crossover.
Did you?
Where they have to do a detect? He helps them solve a crime.
That happened last year.
Did it?
Batman the Animated Series Adventure Continues Season 2.
Mm-hmm.
Look it up.
Because
Batman the Animated Series, the comics, they brought back that series so they could introduce some Batman characters and characters who weren't in. There's a Zatanna Deadman Batman storyline in, I think it's season 2. I'll look it up afterwards, but it was a lot of fun. So because it was right what you were looking for of Batman Detective with Deadman.
Now, see, you brought up half of what I'd like to see. I want to see a team-up book, but I want it to be Etrigan and Zatanna.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. You'd have to throw Constantine in to help control Etrigan. I think Etrigan gets off the chain sometime. I don't know. That's awesome.
All right, so going off that, because you're a reader.
Yeah.
All right, so who do you think is the best pound for pound writer going in comics right now that you enjoy the most, and the best? And if they're not writing currently, what's the best written book in your opinion on today's market?
So, man, wow.
How does one answer this question?
How about
like,
this?
and not have like a top 10 or something?
Right. I was just say top 3. Just slim it down, Bearded. Make it top 3. Top 3 off top of your head. You're reading right now, top 3. I don't like the best. I don't like answering those best things because it makes.
Well, see, like back in the day,
because also best is so speculative, right? Like it's so subjective to.
Well, I mean, to you, right?
Yeah,
it's
to
personalized.
Me, there are 3 writers that instantly come off the top of my mind when I'm like, I will pick up almost anything that they write.
Right.
Tom King's one of them because there it is. Tom King's in there. Man, all right, I'm gonna make it 4. It's Tom King, I'm a big Mark Russell fan. Anything Mark Russell does, I love what he creates.
He had a
So
great
22 Comics,
tenure.
I'll just say this. I know people don't love. I know Tom King is a tough one to come off the bat and say because people have a love-hate.
I'm with you on Tom King.
There's
I
22 Comics hating it.
22 Comics is not.
And I'm okay with that 22
Yeah,
Comics.
yeah.
And I bring that up because here's the deal. It's not there. I can't do Jonathan Hickman. He's too much over. And I think King, the way King writes is you're either going to love it or hate it because he takes risks. And
yes,
do those risks always work? No. But when they do, man,
they're
I think
marvelous.
they pay off.
They're marvelous.
Sometimes I know, like sometimes they don't work, and I'm okay with that. If it doesn't pay off, but then I can get some where like when people say Heroes in Crisis didn't pay off, fine. But
I loved it though.
But I liked it so. But I can get if
Supergirl
people didn't like Heroes in Crisis, but when we can still get a Mr. Miracle,
yeah.
People
or
didn't
Human
like
Target, even most recently.
Human Target right now is
Human
fantastic.
Target.
A lot of people slept on Batman Killing Time, and it was the 6-issue series. I will recommend it to anyone to say, listen, the first issue, I was like, I don't know if I like this. But it was one of the ones where I go, I'm so happy for the payoff. And I think that's where it is. I think I will say King's hard to read in floppies because it's so much tied together. But
yeah, like I started reading Batman Catwoman.
Yep.
And I was just sitting there like, okay, I read like the first 4 or 5 issues.
Yep.
And I was like, man, I think I need to just sit down when all of these are out or get the collected and just read it all in one afternoon.
Yeah.
And maybe it might make more sense to me because there are some time jumps.
Oh, for sure.
One of the things that I noticed that he is definitely like 50-50 on are like time jumps, like differences in time. And that was one thing that didn't vote well for me. Yeah. And everyone loves the Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. That one was a miss for me.
See?
Wow, I loved it.
I loved it too.
I haven't read that one. I haven't read.
But I think the whole time period, especially of the wedding that didn't happen, all that stuff, like the moment. It's Batman 22, and it's the proposal issue. That moment where he writes it and he's just like it's a throwback to Batman #1 in 1940, where her first appearance is, and where he catches her stealing the jewelry, and in that book in Batman 22, he's just like, I went back and I bought that, and I had it made into this ring because I even knew that. It's just
the callback in history. Yeah.
It was just so beautiful the way it was written. And then you get like Human Target, where that issue with Blue Beetle, where he's just going through it, and you get to the point where like the whole issue, when you're looking at what Christopher Chance is talking about, and it's just like, man, what is the point? What are you getting at? What are you getting at? And then all of a sudden it comes to the end, and he's just like, this was all about her. She is a goddess on earth. And it was just like, oh crap, like he can write the crap out of that kind of stuff, I think.
Yeah, I agree. So Tom King's up there for me. And there's nostalgia in there because it was one of the first series I got back into reading comics. So Mark Russell, I love his writing style. I love that he just goes across the board with genres. He had 2 books come out yesterday, Billionaire Island with Ahoy, and the second series of Billionaire Island, and then Traveling to Mars, Ablaze. Like, so he goes Ablaze, AWA, he has a book all over. He has a book with DC. He did the Marvel, he did Fantastic Four life story. Like, he's someone that there's been very few books that Mark Russell has written where I go, it's not for me. And so I really like Mark Russell. Stephanie Phillips is a big one for me of what she's writing. Like, I fell in love with her when I got back into comics with She was writing A Man Among You, which is a pirate book, of a female lead pirate, which we don't have enough pirate comics anyways. And to have a female lead pirate was like, I was like, this is awesome. And she had another one,
Nuclear Family.
No, not that. It was the one where it was the time traveling assassins. I forget what it is, but it was. I'm blanking on how it's going to bother me, but it was awesome. Yeah, Nuclear Family though. There, Harley Quinn,
yes.
But then Grimm right now, I've been really digging that. So she's one of those writers of. If she's on a book, I'm checking it out for sure. And then last but not least, it's got to be Daniel Warren Johnson. If Daniel Warren's creating something, I'm checking out. Artisan and Assassin, that's it. Yeah, Artemis and the Assassin, that's it. Yep. So
okay, so does on the flip side of that coin, does art have any bearing on you when you buy a book at all?
Yes. Yes and no. Let me say that. Yes and no. If it's a character I love or a writer I love, the art doesn't bother me as much, or if I don't love it. So a prime example is, and that's what's so beautiful is because art again is subjective, right? Like what someone likes about art is another person doesn't. Same thing with writing. You might like someone's writing style, other one doesn't. I don't love Riley Rossimo's art style as much on Harley Quinn. I don't love it.
Yes.
But I love the book that is there and that what she's writing. And, he also did a book with Steve Orlando, did Martian Manhunter. Thought that was great. I don't love the style. And that's not to say that Riley isn't a great artist or creator. It just isn't as much for me.
I don't know. For me, it's like it's one of those things where it's like, maybe not for this book, but you can understand where the art style would work other places.
Yeah, and right. I think it works. I think it works for Harley, and so I get it. I think Martian was one where I don't think it worked for that book. So like art, if it's a bigger label book, and I'm talking like a DC, Marvel, but I'm also talking like Image. I'm talking Boom. I can allow art that I don't love to slide. It's more of when it's a more independent, or if it's a Kickstarter book where I don't really know much about anything. If the art's not there for me, it's a hard no. So
right.
Like that's the reality of it. If the company or characters or writers I know are established, if I don't care for the art as much, it's okay sometimes. But there are less artists where I love art because it makes or break a book. But there are less artists where I'm like, anything that artist does, I'm there for. But like Daniel Warren Johnson was one that I kind of passed up on originally because I wasn't a huge fan of the art. I think the first was Wonder Woman Dead Earth. I was kind of like, I don't know about this art. I don't know if it's for me.
Yeah, I thought it was jarring.
Yeah. And so, RIP to Tim Sale. Biggest Batman fan, did not ring along Halloween for the longest time because the art, I was just like, I don't know. I don't like the art of this book, and it took me out of it. And then when I kept hearing nonstop, it's on everyone's top 5 list, the Batman stuff, I read it and I go, oh my gosh, this is perfect for this book. I jumped right into what is the
Dark Victory.
I jumped right into that and I loved it. And I became a huge fan of anything Tim Sale did. So, and I think that's the same thing with writers. Once you understand them a little bit more as creators, sometimes like you go, oh, I get it for this. I understand why you're doing what you're doing. So, I mean, art plays a big impact of it in certain degrees.
Right. No, just for me, I can't. I don't know. I know that a great story should be able to carry you through the book, but if I'm having a hard time looking at it, I'm like, because there was like, I want to say it was last year. I don't even remember now. It was like Gary probably knows which one it was because he did the same thing. It was like who was it, Gary? It was like a Batgirl and somebody.
The Batgirls, because I went to pick it up and I cracked it open and I couldn't get past the art at all. I'm like, nope.
It was a Batgirl book that
was that Becky Cloonan?
I think that's who the is. It really kind of psychedelic looking like art?
No, it looked like a sixth grader drew it. I mean, it was just
very
horrible.
cartoony.
That's the current run, I believe.
I don't know. I just couldn't get into it. I was like, I was excited. I was going to bust it open and buy it, and then I looked inside and was like, oh no, this is
Spider-Man. The What If Spider Shadow. I love the story. Did not like the art at all through that, but Chip Zdarsky wrote that. The writing was so good that I was able to enjoy the story because the writing was so good.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm like, but when I'm looking at these characters, I'm like, that doesn't look like Peter. That does not look like MJ.
It was a little bit off. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I have to agree with you on that one.
I mean, like you said, it's very subjective. Everybody likes what they likes, and sometimes it fits well with the story. I was just curious because you have to look at the writer and what you
do, and I'm very, and I probably have slipped up at times, but I will be very hard pressed to ever say like, man, this writing is just bad or the art is just bad, because again, it is so subjective.
Right. I say it's not for me.
Bad for me. You know, there are books that people love and rave and are top tier things, and I'm just like, it's not for me. So that's usually my go-to. Like if I'm with this, I'm like, oh, what do you think? I'm like, it's not for me. It means I don't like it.
Right. No,
I think it's the subjective way of saying it.
Like Chris the comic vet and I both love DC versus vampires, and I swear other people roll their eyes. They're like, how?
Like
how
I did just now.
I'm just saying, because it's one of those, you know what? If I sit there and I read like Department of Truth or Nice House on the Lake or something, something that's heavy, I want to go to something that's light, and it's so ridiculously light and crazy that I'm okay with it. I want that other side of it. I don't want to have all my books just be like, oh my gosh, I've got to find the message in it. No, this is just vampire versus hero. It's ridiculous. I get it, but I don't know. I think sometimes that's what comics are meant to be, just a little entertainment and ridiculousness to get out of the norm. So
I do have kind of a question to build off on the art. Is there any we see quite frequently, even in the big two, like different kinds of styles of art. Is there anything that will, style of art wise, turn your head quicker than others?
Yes. I mean, there are artists where if I see they're on a book, I'm gonna perk up a little bit more and go, okay, I'm interested. I love Miss Gerard's art. I think great pairings. I also am a big fan of Clayman. I understand people that don't like Clayman because of, how he, maybe the sexualization of characters a little bit too much on, your male and females there. But I think they're captivating artists. I love the art of in the last, what was it, Batman Joker book, Mark Silveretti's art in that book is fantastic. And it's, you got,
are you talking about Deadly Duo?
Yep, Deadly Duo.
My goodness,
the cross hatching and stuff in it, like and like you open that page, I was like, ooh, this is what we're getting. So like there are art that definitely that I resonate with. If I see a name, it pops up, I'm like, okay, I'm here for that.
Is there a artist that has such a defined style to you that you recognize without even having to see their signature?
I mean, maybe I could say Daniel Warren Johnson just because of how unique it is now. That's one though that is not a craft of mine yet. As someone who read comics, and again, like I said, when I got back into comics, I still didn't even know the writers and creators. I mean, we went to a Comic-Con in 2019. Yeah, it was 2019. I went to my comic shop owner. I said, hey, here's the people that are going to be here. I'm like, is there anyone that I should get their autograph for things? And he looked at the list. He's like, what do you, I'm like, I don't know any of these creators. And I was reading their stuff. I just didn't know who they were. Donnie Cates was there. Ryan Stegman was there. Greg Capullo was there. Neil Adams was there. And he's looking at me like, he's like, we're
for me,
friends.
Greg Capullo would be definitely one.
Like we have a relationship, and like, but he looks at me like, are you joking with me right now? So he was, because like, I didn't know enough. I didn't care enough to read the creator pages. I just read what I wanted to read. And so that wasn't until I started getting into reviews and creating content where I was like, I need to see who these people are. So like, that's where I got my sketch cover of Absolute Carnage, because my store owner was like, here, just take this blank variant, ask for Stegman to do a cool, not a sketch, but whatever they do in the
a remark.
And he's like, he'll do it in 2 minutes for you. It'll be awesome. And it was. So like, so Daniel Warren Johnson, I probably could tell that that's his art because it's just so distinct. But I still struggle to be like, oh, that's there's one Batman creator, I think is Doug Menke, who always, and that was only because Batman had the long pointy ears. I'm like, I can recognize that maybe, but yeah, I don't for the most part.
There you go.
Now, I did want to ask you, I'm going to go back to Batman a second.
Let's do it.
You being a fan. DC gets a lot of criticism right now because there's like a new Batman book every week.
Yep.
Do you think they're oversaturating the character? You think that Batman would be better served with leaner storytelling and fewer books? Or do you think the storytelling is really good in all the books it's in and that they're doing just fine with the character?
So I'm going to answer your question by not answering and say yes and no. Are they oversaturating the market? Absolutely. Yes. However, I don't know if it's hurting. What it's hurting is it's hurting allowing other space for smaller characters to shine. Like you're going to get your Mary Marvel, who only has a 4-issue run right now because there's not enough room on the shelves to have 18 Batman books in Mary. So it hurts it from that aspect of some of the smaller characters you're not going to get as much. I don't to say it hurts the Batman books, no, because or the quality of Batman books, I'll say no because of this. Because for every 3 duds, there's 4 great stories, and I'll take those 4 great stories over the and I have to cipher through the Batman stories that I don't like. But for me to if I get a lot of people didn't read Batman the Detective. That was a Tom Taylor book like 2 years ago. I thought it was a great story, and it was a really cool concept of if it was this organization that was going and killing people that Batman saved because they were basically like they're like Batman is wrong for this world, and so if you were supposed, it was almost like Final Destination meets
right.
Batman, right? Like if you were supposed to die, if he saved your life, if you were supposed to die, we're gonna then kill you because we're setting the world right. And so it'd be like and there's even like a page early on in one of the comics where this organization is killing Batman, trying to kill Batman, and a guy like one of the henchmen like falls off the roof. Batman saves the henchman, and like the boss just straight up like shoots a henchman in the head. Like, no, like you were supposed to die. Like it was a cool concept, and a lot of people slept on it because it got lost in the merit of all the other Batman books. So I don't think it's hurting Batman because Batman is a brand that is established. I think that's the same. I don't think, there's a lot of good Batman stories out there. There's a lot of bad Batman stories out there. I'm not denying it.
Right. Well, just like any other major character.
What?
Just like any other major character.
Sure.
Yeah.
When you have that much material, you're going to have your
right, and you're gonna have stuff that works, and you're gonna have stuff that like people love such and such, and there's just Batman books I don't. So I think it's hurting allowing space for more C-list characters that we'd love to see, but
not even
I don't think
just
it's hurting
C-list.
Batman books.
Not even just C-list, just getting like Green Arrow or Black Canary out there, and getting them books.
Yep.
If they weren't selling though, I think that's what DC decided. If they weren't selling at the rate they wanted, they're like, well, we know we've got Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, and we know they will sell, so we'll just do 18 copies of Batman stories and cover the wall with that because we know it'll sell. I mean, at the end of the day, and every once in a while, like you said, they'll slip in, you know, a 4-issue Mary Marvel, or I think they did. Then they did like a 6-issue Aquaman run. That's what they do, and you know, sometimes I don't know. I mean, Marvel doesn't do that, but at the same time, they do that with Spider-Man. Oh my God!
Or
Spider-Man
someone would argue X-Men.
Well, yeah, absolutely. X-Men and Spider-Man. There must be like 50 different titles for those two. So,
well, you know. And one of the reasons I asked that is, get an easy shot. I think ultimately when Marvel and DC do this, I think it hurts the characters a little bit because, like, there's X-Men characters I love. I have not bought an X-Men book except this last one that has Dazzler in it. In the miniseries, right? But the thing is I know, like, I collected Spider-Man when I was growing up. I'm always gonna love Peter Parker, but I want if they're making it, I want it, right? So I can't get into it. I can't follow the monthly again because it's not going to be one book. It's not going to be 2 or 3. It's going to be 12 to 16 books that they're all dabbling in, and I think that kind of hurts. Just like the big crossovers, I think take away from the character's own books because you dilute the storytelling to fit a crossover. When a book could have been really on track and really firing on all cylinders, and then it has a 3-issue divert where it's doing a forced tie-in, which really doesn't fit.
Yeah, well, and those forced tie-ins are tough. They're tough to do. I mean, you look at people. I love Tom Taylor's Nightwing, and it was great, and the first arc was great, and it's been great.
And then you have that Fear State tie-in.
And you had the Fear State tie-in, and it was fine, but it definitely was like the story's going one route, and like, oh, cool, we got to pull you away to go to Gotham for 2 issues, and it was like, and like, it's my least favorite of, but
yeah.
So I get it. I get why they do tie-ins because I mean, I gotta now buy a Superman book if I want to make sure I know what's going on in Nightwing too. But the Superman Nightwing tie-in was great, but it didn't hurt because I was reading both books, so that helped too.
Well, the one of the things that early like actually probably is recent as 6 months ago, they used to just get my goat was the fact that we would have these events and then we would have some area of continuity that would just get kind of messed up. And there's times where you're sitting there and you're like, but wait, how is this happening in this book when in this other book is supposed to be, in continuity? This is happening. Literally, we had a guest appearance in a Catwoman book of Harley Quinn, which I don't mind. Give me as much Harley Quinn as you want to give me, but it didn't make sense comparatively to what Harley was doing in her book at the same time.
At the same time.
Yeah, and those are always jarring like that. It just kind of. And the thing, though, they're your favorite characters, so you kind of get over it and you keep moving forward with them.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you're like, don't do this because you want new readers to come in because you want this medium to succeed at all times.
Right.
And it's tough, especially these days. So, guys, we've been going for an hour and a half, an hour with Bearded.
An hour, 10 minutes. Shut it.
Hour, 10 minutes of Bearded. So we're going to get around to our final questions. And we'll start wrapping up. So it's a consumable length for anybody because we want people to be able to see him and go sub his channel. And so we're going to go around with final questions. So, Jim, we'll start with you. Do you have any final questions for Bearded, sir?
So how long did it take you to convince your wife to do the challenges that you do? I mean, I'm just curious, asking for a friend.
So this is gonna be an answer that probably most YouTube creators are not gonna like. It took me no time to
really.
It took I did one episode of Name the Character with her. I was just like, hey, what if I was like, can I quiz you? I was like, it'll be for the show. And it also kind of was like, nobody from our world at that time knew that we were doing this, so she didn't care from that aspect. We didn't tell my family I had a YouTube channel till a year after I had one.
Right.
We kept it was her and I kind of thing, because I didn't want it to get out to like family and friends. I wanted to just be my comic bubble. And so she kind of, I think, was like, I'll hop on and do an episode. Sure, no problem. And one of the first comments in that video was like, well, that's not fair. You should have her quiz you. And she commented back like, yeah. And I was like, well, do you want to? She's like, okay. And then we did an episode, and I was like, well, I'll quiz you now because I got more. I got paid. And we kind of did it kind of fell into place that we were doing it.
Yeah. That
then it kind of, when we did like 8 in a row, we were just like, oh, wow. Because it wasn't a weekly thing at the time. It was kind of just like, I think it was like every twice a month maybe, or something like that. And
when the mood strikes.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, I need to make a video. Let's do one of those name that character things. But so that took no time. Some of the other things took a little bit of more convincing, like, hey, sit down and read a comic, or hop on and review a show where she has to be the main person. That's more of a challenge for her.
Got it.
And so we've tried to craft all our content to be where we are each other's co-hosts and play off our relationship and our connection with each other of, you know, our goofiness and weirdness that we do. Because if I'm okay being solo here, but if you're like, hey, let's do 10-1-1, you know, or in the hot seat with Mrs. Beard, she's like, no. So,
and the reason why I say is you know, my wife is uber competitive. So if we ever did something like that and it was around comics and pop culture, she would be in this comic room ripping through every book, reading every book, just so she can D up and beat me at every single one of them. So that's why I asked that.
So she's competitive, but she knows like going against me would be, because she just is this isn't her world.
Right.
So, but there was an episode, and you know, Cole, who's part of Comic Burrito, there's 2 other guys on that channel. One is named Todd. Todd came to me with a show of like doing a game show where we got our kind of like what it is with Name the Character, but it's more of a trivia challenge.
Sure.
And we did an episode where Todd and I made comic book trivia questions for our wives, and we had them compete against each other, and they both got super excited. And it was, that's a show I wish we could have found time to work. And because it was, everyone loved it. Our wives had a blast doing it. We had a blast creating it, but it was hard to find. We just kept running into so many issues of syncing up, of finding contestant schedules, because we weren't just coordinating with us or 4 other people. You know, we were coordinating with us, 2 other significant others, 2 other significant, like it's when you're coordinating with 6 people, it just got a lot. We just never could make it work. But she got super uber competitive about that, because she was like, oh, you don't know anything either? Cool. Well, then let's go for it. You know, but so, because that's the thing is like, so those where it's like the last review was the first time where she was like, I said, let's do it. And she goes, okay. Because she's starting to figure out her voice when it comes to what she wants to say about things and create things with me. And so like when she went into the movie, I think would come into of, what am I going to say about this movie more? She went into it as a reviewer almost, which was kind of funny to see. And so she was more, she had ideas that she could formulate her thoughts and stuff. And so when I give her prep time, she's like Batman. If she has enough prep time, she's going to dominate you. Because it's like Jim, like you said, if she can go around, look, if she can prep, she's dominate you. But if I throw her on the spot, I'd be like, nope.
Well, it was the funniest thing. One time my wife came home, she'd gone out with a group of her lady friends, and they went to a bar, and it was a bar trivia night thing, and their team won on the final question that was asked of them. And it was, it was who is the main villain of Captain America? and she said Red Skull.
Yeah.
And they were like, "Are you sure?" And they said, "Do you know?" She said, "Do you know anybody else?" And they said, "We don't even not sure, who this is they're talking about, because it was before the Avengers and all that other stuff." And they won. And she came home and she goes, "Hey, that useless crap you always talk about came in handy that night." And I was like, "Useless crap? Come on, that's general knowledge that you should know."
Right? And
Jim got validated.
It's so good. It's so good when they get those knowledge. We were at a Comic-Con last year. We were walking through. It was one of those 3-day cons. And by the third day, she was like, "Oh, that's the first appearance of Black Mask, isn't it?" She goes, and she looked, and then as soon as she said, she's like, "I hate you. I hate that I know this. I hate that I know this." And
that knowledge is in her head, right?
That's when you got to turn around and say, "You are so hot to me right now."
I was like, I love it. And so it just worked out great. Like, she was digging in comic boxes with me that con, so it worked out well. So
yeah, like it's awesome that your wife wants to be on with you, because like Joe, my boyfriend, will do audio things with me, but he won't go on camera.
let me clarify. Wants is different than tolerates being on. I think there are two. I think there are two differences. I think if you said, "Do you want to be on my show?" she'd be like, "No," but she's like, "Will you go on it?" And I say that in all honesty of joking. Of, she knows this is a passion and a hobby of mine, and for her, she enjoys doing it because it's something that I love. And so, like, that just is that dynamic, and it won't always work, with a lot of people, but I'm blessed from that aspect that, she's like, "I'll do it because you want me to," more than she wants to.
That's nice.
Well, we love her, so
yeah. And that's why I tell her, I'm like, "Listen, like, people care about you more than me now on the show." And, and she's like, "No." I go, "Listen, I can interview creators who write comic books, who are making the comic books that all of us fools are talking about and raving about and unboxing about." I was like, and I can talk to a big one that no one will watch, but I go, "But if you hop on and talk about your opinion on Black Adam, man, it's going to give me more views than anything." She's like, "Shut up." I'm like, I'm telling you, they don't want to know what Ron Mars has to say about Green Lantern, but they want to know what you have to say about Black Adam. I'm like, I don't get it, but that's the truth.
Because I think sometimes we can get to the point, like, especially like professional appreciators, get to the point where we have very, fine-tuned opinions, and it's bringing your wife on who's watches the stuff and participates with you, and to have her review of something is like the every woman, like, what is the every woman, the every person experiencing when seeing this?
Right. Different perspective.
Yeah, it is. It's a different perspective because we all have our biases of what, what's good, what dictates. And so it'll be interesting because I feel like she gave a review for Black Adam that people really like. I don't know what she's going to think of Black Panther 2. So I just feel like it's not her style movie, so I'll be curious to see. So now it's just finding the time to do that. So I don't want to say like tonight would have been the only night we would have been able to go see it. But I had a commitment that I was late to. But
I think the most epic thing that I've seen her do is her reaction to Saga.
You and Gore.
Right.
You and
So
Gore.
Carrie, did you have a final question for him?
You know what? Because I'm gonna base this off of what I would hope to be asked. So you have definite opinions, especially about the big two, especially DC. And I was wondering if you got into a position where, Jim Lee calls you up, man, and he's like, "Man, we want you to write a character. We want you to do a 6-issue run, special Black Label story on DC. Who are you writing? And maybe a little bit of what the story would be like."
So first thing I say to Jim Lee is, Are you drunk?
You dialed the wrong number.
I can't write for the lick of me, so that wouldn't be. That's a great question. And I mean, my first thought would be of like, hey, my first pitch. This is honestly, and I'm not trying to skirt your question. My first thing I would say to them is like, do you think? I'd say to Jim Leo, like, what do we have to do to buy the rights to a character like the Phantom?
Mm-hmm.
Like, because who's making? When's the last time you've seen a Phantom comic come out?
Phantom was DC, I believe.
Right.
It was at DC for a little bit.
For a little bit. So that's so it can go in, right? And Marvel's gotten some licensed properties and things like that. So but I'd be like, when can we get? I don't even. Super Pro I love Super Pro. I do. But I understand that, like, I love it for my nostalgia of what it means to me.
Right.
But I would love to see, like, could we get like Phantom? Could we get a Dick Tracy type? I mean, you want to talk about fanboy? You give me a Dick Tracy Batman team up where you have Dick Tracy doing old school detective work and Batman having all his fancy gadgets, and Dick Tracy's like, I've got a watch that talks to me, but like, like I'm just a hard-boiled cop. Like, I would love to see DC acquire some characters that aren't in their wheelhouse and say, man, what could we create with them? And
maybe kind of like what Marvel does with every once in a while they get the rights to Conan, and they include Conan in their stories. You're thinking like, what can we throw money at and get
Dick Tracy and Batman 66.
Right, like those crossovers with those books they were doing with the Linda Carter Wonder Woman, like those are fun. And I think it was Jim, you were talking about fun, reading those things. And see, this is why I love when Gore's on, because I ask questions like, when's the last time it is? Gore knows. Gore knows. There's something to be of just like, man, this was fun to read. And I think there are some stories out there that could just be like, man, this was a fun thing to dip our toes into, of this, crossovers of Batman 66 and Wonder Woman, Linda Carter stuff. And, I'm down for it. So I would love to see stuff like that. I'd love to see some established characters who laid the groundwork for comics to, that get overlooked. And, we were talked a little bit about this on Tuesday, like Dick Tracy. No, but very few people read anything about Dick Tracy. They tried to reboot it. It didn't work. Like, and I get it. There probably isn't a market for it, but man,
I think
the 90s were dominating that though, right? The 90s were like, let's Billy Zane, you want to play the Phantom? Check. All right, cool. Alec Baldwin, how do you feel about being the Shadow?
Throw those purple tights on and go, buddy.
Right? Like, like they were like, let's embrace it. So I would love to see that a little bit more.
Just when you were saying like Dick Tracy meets Batman 66, I was just thinking, man, you could do something with a older retired Dick Tracy being thrown back into the game because of some case that he never was able to solve, and now it's popping up in Gotham City and he's got to go work with Batman.
It writes itself.
There you go. Right. All right,
if Jim Lee happens to be seeing this, you can find me at Officially Unofficial Geek.
Get that plug in. So my final question is simple. Since you brought it up at the beginning of the show, I wanted to know, what's the first movie you saw with your mom, if you remember it?
First movie I saw with my mom, man.
And the one you liked the most that you didn't think you'd like?
It'll be interesting to see. anything I say is going to be made up because I don't have a vivid memory of that's my first. I have more vivid memories of certain movies I saw in the theater.
All right, then let's alter it. Your favorite memory of going to the movie.
So, I mean, my first memory of seeing a movie in theater was Dick Tracy. We went to a pizza shop when I was 5 years old. Got to order pizza, ate it in the shop, and then went to see Dick Tracy. Like that was my first memory. My second memory, Waterworld is up there as one of them I remember seeing in theaters with my mom. I don't remember where it falls into the timeline.
Did you ask for your money back?
Fan, I take it.
No, I did not ask for my money back. I was like 7. I thought it was the coolest thing ever. Like, are you kidding me?
Okay.
I was like, this is fantastic. I had the entire complete set of the Waterworld action figures. If you're like, who has Kevin Costner as an action figure? I'm like, I got him as a character from Waterworld. I got him as a character from Robin Hood Men in Tights. They're like, oh, what about Dennis Hopper? Yep, I've got him as Deacon from Waterworld. I also got him as Koopa from Super Mario Brothers. So I'm like, I collect random obscure, like when the 90s and Kenner Toys were just like, hey, let's make a toy line for any movie that ever comes out. I was the kid that was like, yes. Oh, Dragonheart, where Sean Connery is the voice of a dragon and he's fighting Dennis Quaid as a dragon hunter. Like, I have those toys. I do. Like,
there you go.
So like those were the first. Batman Forever was the first Batman movie I saw in theaters. So that's why it holds such a candle. I wanted to see Batman Returns as a kid. I would have been, it was what, 92, 91, 92. So I would have been 6 or 7. Mom was like, oh, heck no, there's no way you're seeing that. And rightfully so. I probably should not have seen that as a 6-year-old. But she let me go see Batman Forever. And so we went to McDonald's because they were doing all the merchandising for it. So I had the glass cups right over there on the shelf and the big cups and things like that. And so we went in Batman Forever. So like those memories stick. And that's why I collect and go back and collect a lot of that stuff. Cause you know, that's what nostalgia was for me and reliving my childhood. So those were the movies I remember. I remember being upset that my mom didn't take me to Titanic because when I was older because I wanted popcorn, but she knew about the inappropriate scene where Leo draws the girl, so she snuck off without me because she didn't want me to see it as like I think I would have been 12 years old or something.
Draw me like one of your French girls.
That is
right.
In 1998.
And I was just like, I found out, I was like, you went to a movie and I didn't get popcorn? Like, I just wanted popcorn in a comic. Like, come on. And she's like, yeah, I can't take you. Like, you're not 6 anymore. I can't like just cover your eyes or say like, she'd look over at me and be like, we don't talk like that. Okay. And then we'd go right back to watching Terminator 2 Judgment Day. And she'd be like, like she was super like, we couldn't watch anything. If it was a boxing style movie, like where they're just straight up punching each other. No, like that was way too violent. Like Rocky's too violent because you're punching each other in the head. But if a car ran through a building and crushed a guy and knocked him off the building, that was cool because it was fine because like that doesn't really happen. But like the boxing was too, and I'm like, Mom, your rules for what I'm allowed to see and not see is the most absurd thing I've ever seen in my life.
So Terminator 2 was in, then RoboCop was in.
Yeah. So I didn't get to see RoboCop.
No, RoboCop's way more mature than Terminator 2.
She at least, there was a line with Terminator 2. I felt she was like, there were a couple scenes. So she always previewed the movie, and so she would know when to hide my eye. She hid my eyes in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade at the end when he did not choose wisely the Witch Grail because she's like, no, this is gonna mess you up. Like, or she'd fast forward the VHS.
Did she cover your eyes during the face melting scene in Raiders?
Heck yeah, but I also didn't see it until I was older. I watched them out of order. See, I watched a lot of movies out of order because I feel like Last Crusade was a little bit more family friendly than say Temple of Doom, where they rip a dude's heart out. And
I love Temple of Doom.
So I mean, let's be honest, we all watched those movies out of order because Temple of Doom is a prequel to Raiders of the Lost Ark. So
right, and you know, and I'm one of those few people that Temple of Doom is my favorite indie movie. And there's not a lot of us.
No, there are not. There are not.
I love Temple of Doom.
There are not. You
know what?
The only people that would be like, that's the worst is if you would have said Kingdom of the Crystal Skulls. People would be like,
oh, I think that's a universal
I don't
thing.
think anyone chooses that one. People don't even consider that an Indiana Jones movie. Which is too bad because I love Kate Blanchett and I felt like she got wasted.
Yeah, she did. But man, what a great property for comics though. Give me some Indiana Jones comic books. Like, man,
this shouldn't be a problem considering it's Lucasfilm. And I don't know why maybe somebody needs to whisper in the ear of Marvel and say, you know what, you have this connection with Lucasfilm already. Why aren't you doing this?
I think we'll see some, they've got the
They'll time it with
open world video game coming up now.
Right.
Eventually. I think you'll see it. And I think they are,
and they're doing the movie.
Comic book companies are trying to see, like, I mean, they dropped a Rocketeer comic this last spring, last fall, or summer fall. There was a Rocketeer comic, so companies did do a Dick Tracy comic 2 years ago. They did 2 arcs of it. They just weren't what they needed to be. So,
yeah.
Yes, there are. They're going to do another Indiana Jones TV show.
Yep. Man, that young Indiana Jones show.
Yes.
Fantastic. So good.
So much fun. I remember that one.
What was that one? Amazing Stories I liked and it didn't last long. The Robert Zemeckis show.
Oh, because they redid that and those stories for Apple TV. That was one of their first releases. Were the Amazing Stories because Steven Spielberg went and did that. So Apple TV has 1 season of Amazing Stories, and one of them is based off a comic book. One of them is based off of comic book by Don Hanfield. It's called The Rift. So, and by basically a guy, like a World War II fighter pilot, crosses over into like a time jump kind of thing. And so check it out if you like Amazing Stories, because they rebooted it for Apple TV, and one of the episodes is based off a comic book.
Nice.
Let's go.
Let's go. Excellent. All right, guys, with that, I want to thank everyone in the chat who came out to support Greg and my co-host. Links are in the description. Please sub up if you haven't. You guys are here because you love them. Those of you watching on the rewind, thank you for checking us out. We certainly appreciate it. I want to thank Jim, as always, my steady co-host. Jim, your time with me is always appreciated, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Gary, thank you so much for jumping on and being a third party to this interview. Really appreciate it. And, of course,
thank you for having me.
Bearded, with your celebrity status arriving whenever you feel like it, I just want to say thank you. And for gracing us with your presence and giving us a great show. And, I'm deflecting because half of this is my fault, but I'm putting it all on Bearded.
I just want to put this out there as my calendar. This is the family calendar.
It's the narrative he's going with, Bearded.
Right?
I don't need to put you on blast, Gary, and screenshot our chats where you said 8 o'clock for Tuesday and 8:30.
I was just going to say
times on me, but
his next couple Instagram posts are going to be me when I initially contacted him.
It said 8:30.
He's going to be like, this is me trying to clear the air here.
you messaged, you tagged me in the Instagram story. I retweeted. I was like, oh, that's me. I'll just retweet this, repost, share it to my story. I didn't read it. I didn't look at it was 8 until people started going, where are you at?
That's his next IG post, right? That first conversation we had. Gary B, the casual comic guy. Is he really a nice guy?
Is he really that casual?
Sets you up for failure.
Next time, who's your guy? Oh, Brian. I'm gonna message Brian next week. Like, hey, Brian, he's gonna tell you 8:30. Just be prepared to show up at 6 o'clock when he changes the thumbnail on you. And like, where you at, Brian? I told you 6 o'clock. Like, he'll do it to you. Watch out, man.
Watch out, Brian.
Gary's about to get a comic book community award for being sneaky as co-host. He's like,
but honestly, dude, thank you. It was great having a Bearded Week theme on my channel. So, man, I really appreciate it.
Man, I appreciate you having it. I know when you said like, hey, do you want to do a Bearded Week? I was like, yeah, I could talk nonstop. I love hearing I'm the one that's most upset because I'm like, I cut time for me to talk out of the show. I'm like, I love to talk. So, but it's good that we're ending. My wife's texting me like, you want to shoot this Name That Character video? We better get ready.
Right.
But thank you. And guys, really appreciate everyone tonight. Really fun show. Great getting to know Bearded. And I just thank you to everyone. Guys, that's it for this episode. Until next time, keep it casual. Attention all, use channel sponsor Rogue Trader at theroguetraderutah.com and my code Keep It Casual for 10% off your comic cleaning and pressing needs. Remember, when submitting your books to be graded, use a trusted professional.